Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about The Cleaning Lady, Season 3, Episode 9. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, we're immediately picking up at first with Luca at a basketball game and Ramona showing up, which like her having the audacity to hug him and high five him and stuff. Tony was immediately like, no, let's get out of here, because it's like, that's super jacked up. You're up there threatening. You literally tried to kill Tony last episode. You're threatening her family. You got the audacity to roll up and hug on her kid and everything. It's like that is some psychopath. Like, yo, Ramona's already been out of pocket. This is probably the most out of pocket deranged she's been, like, so far in the show. Like, the fact is doing, like, I mean, to be fair, she's already been very sinister about, like, oh, yeah, kind of rolled up in your place where your son's at without you being here. Oh, I'm kind of friends with your son. It's like, yo, this lady is crazy. So Tony's got to play the long game. I'm going to work with Ramona. I'm going to find out what's wrong with her, because if I don't, I'm dead. So I kind of have to do that. I have to do work that no other doctor has been able to find out what's wrong with her. So Tony's kind of screwed, because it's like she wants to do her own test, but Ramona's like, no, I'm not going to let you anywhere near me with a needle. It's like, well, fine. Get another doctor to do it and just let me examine it to see what's wrong. But it's like, yeah, if you don't find out what's wrong with me, I'm going to kill you. So Tony's got to stress about, like, okay, I want my family safe, but I also want my revenge. There's no way she can get away with what she did to Artemon. Like, done all the manipulating, all the destruction, all the threats. She doesn't just get away with that. So it is about ensuring her family safety, but it's also about, like, knocking her down a peg or two. Now, I don't know what Tony's plan is. The end result might be Ramona being killed, which if Ramona dies, that's going to be issues with Jorge, because despite their beef and their differences, like, that's still his sister. So, familia, comes first. That's always the thing of, like, you could have beef with, like, I've seen that firsthand. Like, my sisters have beefed before and had issues, but, like, when it, like, my sisters can be very ride or die for each other. Like, we could hate each other, but then, like, someone starts shit with one of my sisters, like, the other one, like, will jump in and be like, yo, no one gets to, like, beef with my sister but me. It's that type of situation, which I think it's, as the outsider to that, like, dynamic between both my sisters, it's such an interesting thing. But it's the exact same parallel of Jorge and Ramona. It's like, right, I might not like the decisions you make. You can be very stubborn and very hard-headed, but I still love you, and I'm going to do what I can do without, like, threatening everything that you have, because I still love you and respect you. I just want to go my own way. We'll get to that in a second. So If anything happens to Ramona, which it possibly can happen in the future, that'd be bad for Tony, because she'd have to deal with Jorge, who's been nothing but like a friend and ally to her, like her main beef. Yeah, Jorge's made his threats, but he's still looked out for Tony in ways that Ramona hasn't. Plus, it's also like, well, Ramona's alone, where at least in Jorge's case, he has a daughter, so Tony's going to be a little more sympathetic as a single parent herself. So. But either way, the point I'm making is, like, just Ramona's just in, like I said, in her bag this episode, because Tony didn't get I love that Jeremy was there to get information, but it didn't need, like, he unintentionally gave her the idea of what was wrong with Ramona, because she was studying all these different books about trying to understand what happened, and ultimately she finds out she's died, like, it's lead poisoning. Apparently she got shot in the leg like a decade ago, but they didn't get all the bullets. It's like, unless a surgeon's there to get all the bullets, it's like whoever was taking care of her put out the bullet, but the bullet could have shattered, and yeah, find out there's two big pieces of metal inside of her, well, iron inside of her. Not iron, stupid. It's literally in the name, lead poisoning. Jesus, I'm sorry. It's been slowly killing her this entire time, and now it's like splintered off. Like, it's kind of just been leaking into her blood, and that's what all this has been about. And Tony literally made it clear, well, we need to get you to, like, a hospital and a surgeon. She's like, no, you're going to do it. It's like, no, I think you should go to a hospital. No, we're going to do it right here and now. You're going to take it out. It's like, lady, are you, what? I don't want to do it, because you've literally made the point, if anything happens to you, I'm dead. It's like, fine, I have to do this. All right, let's put you, here's some ketamine. You need some pain medicine. It's like, no, I don't want to be, because she doesn't want to be vulnerable around, once again, I'm letting the person who I tried to kill an episode ago into my house. Like, I'm not going to trust you with a needle around me to take my blood. I'm also not going to trust you with injecting anything into me. And Tony's almost like, what do you want me to do? Like, I'm not going to try and gamble my life just to kill you, because everyone here, like, if something happens to you, they immediately pop me. So it's like, Tony's like, I don't want to do this. So she's like, fine, like you have to cut me open. It's like, oh God. So Tony does it, gets one piece out, but it has to go deeper because one of them's near an artery. And she's like, I don't want to do this. We need to take you to a hospital. She's like, get in there and do it. It's like, bitch, you just told me if I fuck this up, you're going to kill me. It's just like Tony is in the most high pressure situation. She ends up like snipping like the artery or whatever. She starts, or it might have been like it might not have been an artery. It might have just been a vein, whatever the case may be. Snip something, moving stuff, and now it's like, oh, she's bleeding out. And there's just that moment. It almost reminds me of The Bear, where it's like, oh, there's a fire. You watch it for a minute, then you put it out. Tony was like that in that moment where she was like, I could just let you bleed out. I mean, granted, you'd still have to deal with all those guards that are immediately going to pop you. But it's just in that moment, she's like, oh, but if it wasn't, what would Tony have done? Would she, because she sees her, she's passed out, and let her just like bleed to death and be like, yeah, it was, I mean, I'm sure she probably would have tried to talk her way out of it, but they still would have popped her. But I think in that moment, Tony's just like, I want you to die. I want you to die. I want you to die. This is my revenge. I don't care about anyone. She got tunnel vision in that moment. But it's like the only thing that snapped her back to it was Jorge showing up. If he hadn't showed up, maybe Tony would have just let her bleed out, but it's like, or at least she would have stood there a little bit longer. Who knows? But like, there's no getting out of that if Tony but Tony wasn't thinking in that moment. She didn't care. She was just like, I could leave you here to die. That's all. Just be that simple. I don't even have to hold on anymore. Just let you bleed and let you die and this is what you get. This is what you deserve. But then like Jorge being there snapped her out of it. So it's like, okay. Luckily with his help, was able to kind of not only get the final piece out, but also stitch her up, and turns out she's okay. Now we're just gonna do some stuff to make sure we get all the iron, I keep saying iron, all the lead out of your blood, and you'll be good. And now she's indebted to Tony, because she's like probably thinking to herself, okay, Tony had the opportunity. She could have actually done something, but she didn't. She helped me. So she's going to be letting her guard down a little bit. But it goes back to what Jeremy was saying about playing the long game. And it's like, you've gained Ramona's trust in a way you haven't been able to before. You not only figured out what was wrong with her, you also had the opportunity. You could have just let her die, but you didn't. So there's that. But especially at a time when her relationship with Jorge was kind of rocky, because Jorge's working with Nadia, because he's like, yeah, I want to take half her money, and then I want to kind of build my own operation. It's like, right, you don't want to shut down like the current routes and stuff. That's fine. I just want to go my own way and do my own thing, which she's pretending to be okay with it. They're trying to blackmail a judge so that he will drop the charges on Nadia. Turns out said judge is one of Ramona's contacts, and she proceeds to burn him. Somehow got access to the blackmail photos they had to use again. It's like, why would you do that? And even she's like, well, at the time, she's like, well, I admit I might have overreacted. It was like, you were out of pocket this entire episode. At first, you're kind of like, you simply, like, you want to keep your family near you because the only family you have left in this world. That's why you were trying so hard to grab onto Audemars. Was like, right, you're trying to grab onto whatever family you have left. Your brother wants nothing to your brother wants nothing to do with you, neither does his wife. I mean, that's mainly Eduardo's beef, but you know, his wife kind of sides with him, especially now that Audemars is dead. He blames you doubly so for getting, like, you know, you're just as responsible because you're the reason why he was probably mixed up in that world to begin with, because you've always been in that world in his life. So that's like, despite my attempts to keep my son away from you, he ended up falling you into this life, and you ended up being the reason why he died. You know, that does still fall on her. But once again, she doesn't want to be alone. And as Jorge puts it later on too, she wants power and control. And any slip of, like, she wants things her way, and anything outside of that pisses her off. It's like, right, Jorge, you could go off and do your own thing, but it's like, I'd rather keep you under my control. Like, yeah, like, I need you. You're fundamental to this organization. But she even says, like, I don't want you, like, I thought you were going to cut me out. It's like, but Jorge isn't, like, as mean as you are. Like, you would, you know, but because she's all about familia and everything, but it's still the thing of, you would cut people out. I mean, we saw with the judge, like, no matter how useful someone is, you will drop them at a hat if it is convenient for you. And it was convenient for you because it stopped any, like, Nadia and Jorge collusion, because you're feeling like Jorge was going to drop you and join forces with Nadia, which kind of was, but he was going to be like, nah, sis, you do your own thing, I'm going to do mine. I'm sure there's also the element of, despite everything, my brother does have ideas about running this organization. He does have the smarts So I don't want the competition. They probably wouldn't be in competition, but it would be competition. So that's doubly reason why I'm sure she's like, nah, I gotta nip this in the bud before you even like get started. I need to break your legs before you learn how to walk. You know, even though Jorge's been sprinting the entire time, she's like, I was about to make her pop reference. I was like, it's effed up, but I was like, I'm gonna have to Tanya Harding this shit, you know, just to kind of stop you. All that time and effort down the drain. It's like I mean, it's got to piss Nadia off to no end because it's like every time I'm turning around, this chick is screwing something up, drawing me and pretending like we're family when it turns out she's the one responsible for what happened to Armand. Like she had an opportunity to fix that immediately and she didn't because she wanted to protect Dante, but she also wanted to use an opportunity to make Armand indebted to her. But she didn't realize Armand had probably already seen her face, hence why he left a message behind who was responsible for his circumstances. So there's that. Plus now, she's screwing you out of getting out of jail. Even to the point that Nadia's like, she would have let me rot in jail, which Jorge's like, no, she wouldn't have. But it's like, I don't know, there's a strong possibility. It's like, yes and no, because it's like, you are still Armand's wife. You're still like the closest connection to Armand she has. And she would want you guys to be good. So she would do everything that she can to be in your good graces. The only reason why she wasn't on your side now is if Jorge hadn't made that decision to go behind her back to work with Nadia, who knows what the relationship would be. Because I think she would do a lot. She did visit Nadia like last episode, and Nadia was like, I want nothing to do with you. She probably would have still kept trying, but it's because, like, wait, you're working with Jorge? I got to nip this in. But I don't, it'll be a lesson of like, right, don't try to make moves behind my back, but I still got your back, and I'll look after you and try to get your charges dropped. I mean, the reason why they were able to get the charges dropped is because they used another contacts of Ramona, so... Like I said, just Ramona was out of pocket this episode, just like screwing over and threatening everyone. Which Jorge didn't take this lying down. He tried to make it seem like he submitted to his sister. It's like, right, whatever moves I make with Nadia, you're just going to be just as involved. But Nadia figures it out like, you're placating your sister, letting her play like she's the ruler, like she's in control. And it's like, cool. Everyone is so focused on her, they're not going to notice our moves. Which plays out beautifully, narratively speaking, because Jeremy's the one that ended up piecing this all together and brought it up to Russo. Because he's initially thinking Jorge might be the one, he's the top of the food chain in Sensata, but it's like, then he like looked at Tony's medical stuff that she was looking at, and he was like, yeah, thinking it's an autoimmune disease, which I never knew. I guess he was like, yeah, 70% of like autoimmune diseases apparently are women. It's like, that sucks. I mean, there are just sadly things that probably hit one gender more than they do others, which is bad. It's like, that's super fucked. I mean, it's not like it's better if it's like, it's an even split. It doesn't make that any better. It sucks to just be like, yeah, you're more susceptible just based on your gender, like just to be most likely affected by this thing. And so it's like, cool. Who are some of the ladies that Jorge's represented in his life? Lo and behold, his sister. And so Jeremy's put it like, right, she's the one at the top of the food chain. And he's kind of feeling himself of like, yeah, I manipulated Tony. I got all this information. I was, Tony hadn't contacted me for a couple days, but in one fell swoop, in like one afternoon / evening, coming in, pretending to fix a pipe that I broke into your house and messed with. Like, I nailed this. I figured it out, feeling himself. So... But it works out to their benefit because now he's like less focusing on Jorge and now more on Ramona, which plays into their benefit of, yeah, we get to kind of do our thing because like they're not going to pay as much attention to Jorge, not unless they think Jorge might be the approach necessary to get to Ramona. I don't know. Especially with the Nadia like being a client of it, because once again, they were kind of still going from the narrative of, Jorge's the top of the food chain, but now they know he's not. Who knows how much he's going to be on their radar. That's what I'm saying. Like, it still fits and benefits them now that they also know that it's Ramona. So anything that goes down Sensata cartel-wise, it's going to lead back to Ramona because she's the face of the operation. So, I mean, I guess they could always go like the Rico route, but who knows? Because it's up... it's going to be interesting to see, especially because Tony found Jeremy out, which I was like, hey, yo, one episode later after like the official reveal. Once again, I've been feeling it for a minute. Other people were feeling it for a minute that Jeremy was a cop. We found out definitively last episode, and now literally the next episode, she doesn't know he's a cop, but she knows now he's not what he seems. Because he fucked up in so many regards. Because I love that it's like, right, they introduced it like early in the episode that, oh my God, like here's Luca with all this Play-Doh and just like trying to sneak out the house. I have to be careful. It might not be Play-Doh because Play-Doh is copywritten. It might be it's play moldy clay or putty, however you want to call it. Legally distinct, not Play-Doh. But maybe it is Play-Doh. I don't know. Because that's the thing of like, I don't know what you'd call that otherwise. I know Play-Doh, but I'm sure there are non-Play-Doh versions of Play-Doh, and I'm like, I don't know what you'd call that. Just like moldable clay. I don't know what you'd call that. Anyway, there probably is a word for it that I probably am aware of. I'm just not thinking. I'm going on this massive tangent. Moving back to the point, it just happened to be laying about his room, and he happened to step on it. And Tony's like, what? Whose shoe is that? Because like everyone's been mainly out of the house all, and she was like, that's weird, because she knows what shoes people wears, and like, well, how would that have no? Because he was trying to get out of the house and he went out the back door, which meant going through Luca's room, so he screwed up there. But I also thought it was kind of interesting. I was like, well, looking at the surveillance footage, it's kind of screwed because you looped the footage. But the problem is the loop footage does not include Tony walking up to the house. But it's also like, right, you don't, like the smart thing would have been like the moment you saw like Tony coming through, you probably would, but you know, the whole thing, because I was about to say that point, you probably should have switched the footage back. But the thing is, you didn't think Tony would have had a reason to ever look back. It's just a domino effect of because she found the Play-Doh, she was like, oh, let me look at the security footage. But then that made her go, wait, why aren't I in the footage? I see, you know, Luca, Fiona, and Chris leaving, but I don't see when I got here yesterday. The footage had been altered, so she went to a neighbor's, looked at his footage, and saw Jeremy. You know, and especially as it got, because she's like, oh yeah, someone stole package my mom sent me from Cambodia, and he's the guy, the neighbor, he's like, yeah, they're just not who they appear to be. And now she sees Jeremy, and it brings everything into question, like every little moment of just like, oh, you showing up when our office space or just like our work zone was messed up, like when Jeremy was first introduced. Every time you just happen to be there, it's like it wasn't, you know. So now she's probably trying to figure out, who the hell are you? Do you work with, like, are you working with Ramona? It's probably going to be an immediate thought. She probably isn't going to immediately jump the cop, but it's still something to keep in mind. So she's going to have to fill Fee in on that, because Fee was kind of liking Jeremy, even kind of like, oh, he's kind of cute, you know, kind of hinting like, oh, maybe, you know, he should be someone you got to. That's a sad thing. He has been someone that Tony felt like she could trust. I mean, we went through a near-death experience last episode, and now I find out it's all complete and utter bullshit. I'm sure her immediate thought was, oh, does he work for Ramona? But it's like, would he? But then also now it's like, well, she's already dealt with an undercover before. Like I said, there's a deep parallel with Garrett approaching Tony in the same vein of not as a cop first and pretending to be something he's not. So... And it's just like her distraught, especially because he's the one that gave her the advice to get close to Ramona, which I'm sure for her it's like, well, that could still be seen as two ways of like, that could be Ramona playing the long game of manipulating, getting someone to manipulate me into like working with her, or maybe he is. Like, I'm curious to see where Tony's mind immediately goes next episode with that. So, but it's like, man, you were sloppy with that work. But it's like, once again, Tony wouldn't have ever looked at that footage if it wasn't just for the Play-Doh being your, once again, the Play-Doh or non-Play-Doh Play-Doh that was your undoing. And wasn't all, it also doesn't benefit you, sorry, I couldn't get that out, doesn't help that her neighbor has like camera footage too and caught you in probably not 4K, but at least at bare minimum 1080p, you know, so... And Tony's very good at doing this whole situation of, like, she's got enemies on all sides because it's like, well, can't trust Jeremy, he's an enemy. Can't trust Ramona, I'm biting my time to kind of screw her over, finding her weakness and everything. So she's used to kind of having to double play that field. Like, once again, just kind of like a little similar to like the situation, not the exact situation, but similar to the situation where she was caught between Garrett and Armand. But obviously, like, she kind of cared about Garrett in a way. Like, there was kind of something there, and he kind of cared about her. But obviously, her feelings were for Armand. Whereas, like, in this case, it's like she kind of has no one she can trust on either side, because it's like, well, we're like, Ramona might be Armand's family, but it's like, I don't trust her after she literally got Armand killed and just everything. And also, like, well, Jeremy presented himself a certain way, and it's like, well, me and Garrett, despite everything, there was a certain trust there that doesn't exist, and it's like, I'm not going to get caught up in that situation again, despite being exactly caught up in that situation again. So I'm curious to see what she does. She's probably going to try and use this to her advantage, because, once again, what is the end result of what are you trying to do with Ramona? Are you trying to take her down, destroy her? Well, an FBI agent could help you do that, but you also got to make sure you're protected. So she might confront Jeremy and be like, right, I can be your insider. I'll work for you, because it's like, I'm going to protect me and my family by actually working with you. So also don't know how Russo would necessarily feel about that, even though, like, the Sin Cara is like who they're mainly after, but there's just so many, like, different people want different things, and how Tony's going to take this situation and benefit herself. It's going to be interesting to see how she what cards she deals during this whole situation. And then finally, we also had this situation with Chris and Fiona looking desperately for Camilla and her mom. They, luckily, because Tony took notice of a specific, like, water bottle or watering place. Yeah, it's like a bottling place. She pointed Chris and Fiona to that place. They found out, yes, that's where they were working. But then, like, Fee got herself taken to the place. Chris followed. But they're not fully closer to finding out where they are, because by the time they get there, they were there, but who knows if they're going to be there. Because the first lady was like, oh yeah, I know, like, Gisela and Camilla, but then, like, the moment they got back to the place, she was like tight-lipped. I'm like, wait, why are you being quiet now? You were thinking like, yeah, I know him, and now you're like, nah, no. Then the other person is like, yo, I know Camilla. It's like, okay, make sure you talk to her again. You tell her, like, I'm looking for her. But it's like, well, Chris is so desperate to find them that it's like, he's going to end up doing something stupid and causing problems. Because, like, yeah, Fee's like, let's kind of go for now. But, you know, Chris is most likely going to sneak back there on his own. And it's like, oh, don't do that. But you're going to do it because you've shown how naive and reckless, extremely, extremely reckless. You've shown that multiple times this season alone about how reckless you can be. I'm curious, is it a situation of they just constantly move people around because it's that easy way of like, okay, even if this person gets caught, it makes sure that they take the fall and no one else around them does, like no one else in the operation gets caught. I don't like, why would Camilla and her mom not be there even though they were there? So probably to constantly keep people on the move. It's like, yeah, you're here certain days, and then, like, you know, or maybe like you're here 1 week, the next week we move you to another location, and there's a constant like hot potato back and forth of like jobs and places you have to be stashed at, just so no one's the wiser, you know? That's my understanding. We'll ultimately have to wait to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.